and welcome to the Storyboard special. I'm Shabani Gharat. There is no doubt that news channels have a wide reach across the length and breadth of the country. But how can news genre be a great reach builder for advertisers? And is it possible to look at news as a reach builder? To discuss this today, we are joined in by Shashi Sinha, CEO IPG Media Brands India and Chairman BARC India, Ajay Dang, President Head Marketing Aditya Birla Group, Anita Kumar, COO Media and Communications Patanjali Ayurved, and Anuj Gandhi, former Group CEO India Cast. All of you, welcome to the Storyboard special.
Thank you.
Hi, Shivani.
Thank you.
Shashi, let's begin this discussion with you. How much has the news genre grown in the past 2 or 3 years?
I quite like the opening you did on saying news genre is a reach builder. You know, it's one of the most closely guarded secrets in our business that news as a genre gives great news. There's so much fighting which happens on share and, you know, I'm number one and someone else is number one. That the larger genre is ignored. So I think it's a human service you're doing to the genre and yourself by picking this theme up. So I think, growth is a minor point. The larger point is news is very, very big as a genre in terms of reach.
Yeah. On that note, over to you, Anuj. What is the kind of reach that news genre enjoys today versus a GEC?
So, I think that we are actually going to compare apple and oranges if we start comparing news to GEC. Fundamentally, news is all the channels are all what we call as base pack, right? It has 100% reach compared to any GEC. Of course, there are free-to-air GECs also. But the main GECs are all in higher pack. So we are actually talking apple and oranges. You can't compare reach of a news channel to a GEC. GEC will always be a subset of what news can deliver. Also, we can't forget that the predominant main GECs are not available on TD free dish, whereas bulk of news, at least in the HSM markets, is available in free dish. So I don't think it's fair to compare actually GEC and news. News is by itself the largest genre in terms of reach in the market.
Okay. Now, moving back to you, Shashi, what is the kind of advertiser base that the news genre attracts vis-a-vis the GECs?
So, it's about, I think news financially will not be more than 10 to 12% of the entire ADEX. Anita can give a better sense, but that's my sense. It's about in that ballpark of 10%. So, it's under-leveraged, definitely. Of course, a lot of people, like I said, for two reasons. One is that finally advertisers look at ratings and GRPs and time spent is so low in news compared to the serials, as a result of which the GECs do very well. But to your earlier point in terms of reach and also certain TGs like mails and all, I think it's a good story to tell. And I personally, if I may jump the gun, I think the news broadcasters together have probably a larger role to play rather than fighting amongst themselves, and saying I'm number one in this slot and number two in that slot. So I think it's a combination of factors why its 10% would be higher. It's not got its fair share for the reasons which I mentioned.
Okay. Now let's speak to the advertiser on the panel. First, Anita, what is the kind of value that the news genre brings to the advertisers such as yourself?
See, initially, I think years back, we used to treat news as a frequency builder. When we were doing advertising and making plans for our various clients, we used to always use news as a frequency builder. But with the penetration of news, as mentioned earlier by the panelists, was that it is by far the most penetrated genre in the country, and even the GECs are also not as penetrated as them. Given that, I think it's becoming a very, very staple part of any media plans for advertisers. And also, both of them have different roles to play. Both GEC and news have different audiences to cater to. We all know that news is largely male-oriented, but there is a talk and a discussion and some data which also says that women viewership of news is also much better than what it used to be earlier. So given that situation, I think a combination of GECs and news is a very, very healthy combination for all kind of audiences, depending on what kind of product category you are advertising and depending on what kind of audiences you are catering to.
Okay, over to you, Ajay. So how do agencies and marketers really make decisions of having news channel as a part of, their entire media mix? And on what are these decisions, buying decisions based?
So I think the key point is viewership share, and you don't, so reach is one part kind of stuff, your core audience, TG, another important part, and depending upon whether it's a male TG, female TG, I think those pieces make a difference. But largely it's the viewership share that it's gathering. And are there any specific marketing objectives that need to be plugged through a particular channel genre that you want to do? Those are, I think, largely focused objectives that you take for taking news or any other genre of channels.
Okay, and Anita, since you are the one who has moved in from the agency side to the client side, if you can share with us the kind of buying cycles that a client like you has throughout the year.
See, like I said, that something which is staple to a media plan, the buying cycles are very regular. For example, if a news as a genre is a very important part of any media plan for any product category, then that buy actually happens almost on a very continuous basis. Unlike the GCs, where you are, waiting to see as to what program you want to go with. Is it a reality show? Is it an impact property? What kind of, ratings they are garnering and things like that. That does not really happen in news. And as Atul said, absolutely right that, it is the viewership share that is very, very important in the news genre that one looks at, and of course then the audiences and what the marketing objective for any brand is. So we've seen whether it was an agency or in my current role as from the advertisers perspective, I think news, if it is staple to your category and staple to your objectives and planning, I think it stays continuous.
Okay.
Unlike GC.
Okay. Now, Shashi, overall the ad market has been a bit tight over the past couple of months. Many clients I'm hearing have rationalized their budgets, their ad spends. What is the kind of impact of all of this on, different genres, and what is the impact that you expect on the news genre?
The first thing to suffer will be impact, because there's a premium on impact, the multiples, and people are so used to in this country on CPRP that they look at impact CPRP, which is obviously 7, 8, 10 times more. So I think people will be cautious. They will, so it's got irrespective of the genre, whether it's news or the GEC, I think impact is going to suffer to that extent. There's a lot more impact on GEC, so that will suffer. I think between genres, once you say this is my budget, and Ajay will ratify what I'm saying, that this is my budget, then there will be no shift in terms of, it'll be whatever it is, for my TG and for my deliveries. I don't think there'll be a big difference between the two news and the other genres there, There's going to be more the table coming down, more the impact property suffering, but the regular buying won't see a ratio shift in many ways.
Yeah, over to you, Ajay. In such a situation for advertisers, is news genre a cost-effective reach builder during these tough times?
At times within the news genre, they say that laws of gravity and CPRP don't apply to them. I think our stance is fairly clear that we largely go by viewership and the cost effectiveness of it. And then by and large, unless there is a very specific objective, we are fairly agnostic between the channel genres.
Okay. And Anuj, how can news genre increase, its overall audience stickiness on the channels, according to you?
No, I think one of the things that news does very well, and I hear what Shashi said, that news broadcasters between themselves are at loggerheads most of the time. But I think they need to make sure that with the pack penetrations that they have, and of course there is this big debate on landing page, there are various ways and means that news channels will keep increasing their reach and penetration. Like I said earlier, DD Free Dish is a big example. I think also even in regional news there is a huge scope for growth, and people keep in the market there are lots and lots of conversations that keep happening on how to make sure that reach of news channel, because the demand at the local level on regional news channel is also immense, apart from Hindi.
Yeah.
So I think news channels between themselves do a good job of fighting with each other and making sure that they are always available everywhere.
Yeah, and interestingly, Shashi, TV news as a genre had almost 20% of total viewership during the peak COVID months. As per BAG, the share has now reduced to single digits, almost 6 to 7%. So, what do you think news channels can do to gain this prominence again, both in terms of viewership and ADEX?
Firstly, I didn't want to allude to the numbers which you're saying in the opening. I sidestepped the COVID issue. So, since you're saying it, the numbers were very high during COVID, but it's also COVID. I'm not sure you can get to those shares there. I think the way news is sold could be far better, you know. So, there is and thank you, Anuj, for saying, Anuj is like a very good and a very dear friend, speaking from a distribution standpoint, and there's no one in the country who knows it better than him. But from a perception standpoint, probably I know it better. Where I come from, you know, that today the genre has suffered because there are 10 number ones at any point in time in any given day, you know. So the credibility of the genre suffers. So, and I said this somewhere else, that if you come collectively as an industry, you know, you may compete by day, but you collaborate by night, as a line which I've used earlier, and you know, it makes a world of a difference. There are many things you can do together in terms of promoting the news genre rather than fighting with each other, saying I'm number one. You know, it's a bit of a vanity issue for some of the editorial side, pardon my saying so. I think it'll grow the business dramatically. So rather than getting into this comparison with GEC and going back to COVID days, but if you collaborate in many issues, you know, you'll see how to sell the genre better. Today, every planner, and it's hardwired into the DNA of Anita and, you know, everyone else, that listen, we will go by share. News is finally bought on share. You know, it's hardwired in my DNA. None of us look at it, you know, what you said, open by reach building by itself. We never see it that way. I mean, there are various ways of doing it. It will come together. It's not about I'm number one today and someone else is number one on Thursday afternoon or something, you know. So
yeah, and that has been typically used as a marketing strategy to be or portray themselves as number one by many channels. But Anita, over to you. When it comes to marketing of news channels and the content we produce, do you think we as an industry can do a better job than this?
Oh, there's always scope for improvement, Shani. So the question is that I personally feel when you go across all various news channels, and I'm not mentioning any one, I think there is a huge scope for improvement in the content that the news channels bring to the table for the audiences. You know, news should stick to news as a genre, and that might be a very personal opinion of mine, but that does impact the choices that you make, because you know, rather than going the entertainment route in news, I think if news sticks to the content which it is supposed to do, which is disseminate news and information, I think they'll do a far better job. And I completely agree with Shashi that if, you know, the industry holds their hands together, I think it is far more better for the industry in terms of their marketing, because whether we choose news as on the basis of viewership share, stickiness is one very important factor. You know, on the news channels, because news as a genre is also flirtatious for audiences. You know, people do shift from one news channel to the other to figure out what is the kind of news, and that's where content plays a huge role. So there are audiences who say that, you know, oh, I only stick to a channel, a news channel, because that is my favorite. That person or that audience might be finding something really good in the content, or you know, instead of saying really good, a content that resonates with that person. So I think there is huge scope for improvement, like in any other field, I guess.
It is time for a short break. This discussion continues. You don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching this Storyboard special, and we are discussing how can news genre be a great reach builder for advertisers. Shashi, again over to you. GECs have been using landing page as a marketing strategy for a long time now. Even some big sporting properties such as IPL were on landing in the past. News uses it too. As a marketing strategy, do you think it's any different from a Google SEO or, you know, the shelf space that typically FMCG companies use to display their products? Shashi.
Shivani, I'll be careful of this. I'll tell you why. So, while you introduce me, if you ask me, want to answer as CEO IPG brands, I have a point of view. But you also added the chairman BAG position, which unfortunately is a tricky one on landing page. So I'll give you my perspective from a BAG CEO, so that, you know, rather than being quoted wrong, I'll say it from the BAG way. I think landing page is an ecosystem, is an industry issue. It's got nothing to do with BAG. Yeah. So as Anuj will say, almost you could talk of GEC. But if you see a lot of news guys, they may not have done it nationally, they have done it in pockets, in markets or whatever. Anuj, am I right in what I'm saying? A lot of them.
Yeah,
in fact, some of them are screaming loudly about landing pages. I think this is a call which the entire ecosystem, the beauty of BARC, while BARC is blamed for this, and I want to tell you a story here, so which I've repeated, but that's maybe repetition for some of you. But when BARC was told by the government to look at landing pages, at that point in time, BARC had gone to the stakeholders with two options. One was to knock out the entire session, and the second was to do the algorithm which they do now. And the industry, and I repeat, the representatives of the industry from the broadcast side as well as the advertiser side said, no, you should not knock off the entire session. It's a marketing tool which is being used, so why should we knock off what is relevant, which is force viewing. And this whole term of force viewing came. So now, if people want to review, maybe because one network is doing a lot more than the others could do in the past, so this whole song and dance is happening. So my suggestion is that the industry decide. Why blame BARC for something? BARC has both the options. Whatever the industry decides, the stakeholder body, we will implement.
Okay. And this has also resulted into casting slanders on the rating system as a whole. So, Ajay, my next question to you is, does it hurt the industry as a whole? What is your point of view as a client?
So the classical consumer behavior is when there is too much confusion, you freeze kind of stuff, right? And and that's something for the news industry to kind of reflect on. And going earlier to the point, I think, like I said, viewership share is something that we go by. The other piece on that the news industry should, apart from what the other panelists have suggested in terms of cooperating and doing stuff together as an industry, is also look at the content in which advertisers would like their advertising to be in. I think figuring out those things and what is the big game that the news industry is playing, I think that's something for the channels to kind of look at, rather than creating more confusion, because people, if there is every week there is a new number one kind of stuff, you look at advertisers actually are fairly savvy. You look at long-term trends in terms of viewership and you take your calls based on that, rather than who's going up or who's going down this week or next week, if you may.
Anita, over to you. Your thoughts on this, and also how robust, according to you, is the current rating mechanism? What is your opinion as a marketer, as a client?
I've always believed that some data is better than no data. Right, and we've always treated the data coming, whether it used to come from TAM or used to come from is now coming from BARC, as to me largely which shows trends. Rather than going by saying, oh, I am 0.1% rating and now I'm 0.2, which means that I've grown by 100%. Which doesn't make any sense at all. I think what is very important is to see trends. And like Ajay rightfully said, when we choose the genre, we don't go by who's number one week and who's number two the second week or number three the third week. I think we go by long-term data analysis to see how the credibility of the channel, the content of the channel, the viewership share of the channel, and the stickiness of the channel is there. So I think every data, no data is 100% perfect. And in a country like India, where we all know what the nuances are given the diversity of the country, I think we will never have any data which is perfect. But to my mind, where we are putting crores and billions of dollars behind advertising, I think it is always good to have some data rather than no data. So we believe in the credibility of the data system that is there as advertisers and actually go by them. But I think largely we should look at more of trends rather than going by 1%, 2%, 10%, 5% is my opinion on the system.
Wasn't that the whole logic behind the new BARC ratings, Shashi? To look at trends over the past few weeks.
So let me explain that this is the point I made of collaboration amongst news guys. You see, BARC, I'm just adding a flavor to what Ajay and Anita said. And BARC was, unfortunately, I was there right from the beginning, so in different capacities. So, there were at a national level, error level of, for statistics to understand this, there's a 95% confidence, 30% error level is allowed, which is what basically look at trends. Now, the problem is news is a genre because it's shrunk and it's only 10%, As a genre, you will get a trend line. Now, our fellows, our friends start slicing and dicing the data. Not only they slice and dice it on a daily basis, they also slice and dice it by markets. So, Bombay, I'm number one, or whatever, Coimbatore, I'm number two, or whatever. So, the slicing and dicing is, you're looking at it's all wrong data because it's not stable data. And I think, therefore, the larger point being made by both Ajay and Anita, bang on that you need to look at trend line, because statistics don't allow that. It's not viable. You cannot have a system now. Tomorrow, the government will say go to RPD, and as and when happens, because RPD has other challenges of data fusion and stuff like that. But so definitely, if someone understands statistics, which I'm sure all of them do, a lot of these news guys themselves understand stats very well. But if they don't look at logic, they look at what suits them fine to go that path, which is what the crux of the problem is.
Okay. My final question is to all of you, so we can answer it one by one. What are the areas of improvement for the news genre as a whole, and what can be done together as an industry so that the entire ecosystem thrives better? First, let's hear you, Anuj.
I think one of the first things that we have to stop looking at news in isolation of only broadcast. I think the way the growth of digital, and for each of the brands in news, they're all available on digital. So I think, just from a reach perspective and how to grow the whole genre, one of the things is how do the sales happen in news channel needs to change. And probably a combination of digital and broadcast needs to become real. A real 360 kind of sales thing needs to change from news channel. And it will become a lot more, homogeneous for them as well and for advertisers, because a lot more numbers are now coming. And linear ecosystem has its own challenges. In the last few quarters, there have been really stressful numbers from linear coming, where the overall universe is kind of not growing and probably falling a little bit. So it's better that we combine digital and this thing. I mean, if you go to somebody like a YouTube, news genre is right up there in the top 3 or 4 consumption patterns. So I think one of the things that news need to do is seriously look at how it is sold and how can you combine broadcast and digital together. Okay, so not just look at it from a broadcast perspective and how it can be sold better. Over to you, Anita, your thoughts?
I kind of agree with Atul on this. I think there are 3 C's there. One is absolutely the combination of digital as well as broadcast, because the way digital is proliferating now, I think the news channels need to really see how they can in combination sell the broadcast and the digital piece together. The second thing is obviously content. So that's the second C. I think the news channels needs to be very mindful of the content because the audiences come to news channel not for entertainment but for the news content that the channels display. And the last one being collaboration. I think as an industry, the news industry needs to really collaborate together, because we've seen the advantages of collaboration in various sectors of life, not only the news. So I think these 3 C's to me are very important.
Okay, content and collaboration. Ajay, your thoughts?
So the only thing that I disagree with Anita is that from the content point of view, I think as somebody very famous said that medium is the message and TV is entertainment. One way or the other, I think the entire ecosystem is gravitating towards that only because they are conforming to the scale, scope, and mold of the medium itself. So that personal piece aside, but I think there are huge strengths that news brings as a genre per se, in terms of, and it has huge nuances which are underutilized. So rather than look at themselves as trying to cut the same pie into smaller and smaller pieces, and I think create more confusion I think there needs to be some call in terms of collaborating and thinking both in terms of how content will be moderated, and second thing is how selling can be done and how propositions across both digital and TV can be put together for advertisers so that it becomes a very genuine value proposition for advertisers.
Okay, final words, Shashi, what can be done so that this entire industry thrives together?
So I talked about collaboration. I will not repeat. I've been saying it, but I want to pick up what Anuj said. I think that's a good opportunity, on TV plus digital for news. And I may add my 2 bit that on measurement, as Anuj called out, the news guys will gain hell of a lot. Let me also say this to you on record that BARC had thought of digital measurement, Unfortunately, now the technology issue is always stakeholder management becomes a block, Some of the stakeholders didn't agree. So I think if TV plus digital is sold together and is also rated together, if you can start rating it together, the ecosystem will gain handsomely.
Okay, but can digital and broadcast be measured together? Are we equipped with that?
Easily. That's what I said. We were ready 4 years back. We paid 10 crores to Nielsen. We lost the money because it was not a technology issue. It was stakeholder management. Anuj is smiling. He knows exactly. Anuj and me on the same TechCom. We saw it. We spent a lot of quality time together. So, of course, that time was SDKs. Now there's new technology because of the privacy world. But it's very easy. It's not easy. It's not difficult. It's a stakeholder. Anuj knows exactly who spotted it. And he knows also where those guys went. Finally, they went to the digital side and said, let's do measurements. So it's all stakeholder management, nothing else.
Okay.
You can't be more aggressive and more direct than me on this.
Okay. All right, Shashi, Ajay, Anuj and Anita, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights on this topic.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this Storyboard special. Goodbye.